So in part 2 of the video, what we'll actually do is take these blades that we've already made, fit the batteries, connect them up, put some heat shrink over the batteries to stop them falling off, and then go through the blade balancing routine in a little bit more depth. If you're finding this video and you haven't seen the first half, it's probably worthwhile seeing that one first. That's where we explained about the copper tracks, the circuit, the resistor, and also these little surface mount LEDs. Just to recap where we are at the moment is obviously we have installed the connector for the battery, we've installed the resistor, we've stuck on the split copper track all the way along to the end and over. If you remember, initially the tracks went a little bit along, went along the top a little bit further, and that was just so as I was soldering this end and the tape was becoming a little bit soft, the sticky on the back, it meant it didn't move. So now I've finished the blade, I've chopped that off. I'm not sure if you can see, but there's a dab of CA glue around the end of both of those pieces of tape. I've also put CA glue around the sides of the LEDs as well, just to make sure it's not just the solder that's keeping them in place. So I've got two identical blades here. They balance perfectly on the balancer as we saw before. The next step will be to install a battery onto one of these blades and then use that as the reference to set the other blade up to make sure that the centre of gravity and the balance is spot on. So what we'll do now is we'll actually fit the batteries to this one blade. We'll make this one the master, and what we're going to do is use two identically sized pieces of this double-sided tape, and we're going to stick them onto the bottom of the batteries in exactly the same location. I've already done one just so you can see what I've done here, and I'm actually going to now stick that onto the blade. Doesn't matter where, but I want it reasonably near the root. I'm going to put it about there, and then that will become my reference blade for the balancer. So I'll do that and then put it on the balancer and show you the other side. So here we are, we've got the blades attached to the blade balancer now. You can see that one battery is now actually fixed to the blades. That will become our reference. The other battery has got the tape on the back, but I haven't taken the other side of the tape off, because what I'm going to do is now position that battery onto this other blade, and I'm going to gently move it up and down until I get it balanced absolutely perfect. That's slightly down towards this end, so move it in just a fraction. That's almost perfect, just a smidgen more I think. Okay, that's balanced absolutely spot on. So now what I'm going to do is just mark that blade with a pen, just to remind me where the front of the battery should be. I'm going to then fit that battery to that blade and then just recheck that the balance is there, and then I'm going to put the heat shrink on both sides and heat shrink that, and then we'll come back and have a look. So here we are, the blades are on the balancer and they are now perfectly balanced, and hopefully you can see that the heat shrink now is across both batteries to keep them in place, and if I just let go and just let those guys settle, they're perfectly balanced. Now to do that, what I ended up having to actually do was to using a very sharp knife is trim little bits of the heat shrink off the slightly heavier blade. The reason for that is that the heat shrink doesn't shrink uniformly because it's hard to get the heat on it uniformly, and because of that, one tightened up at the back first, the other tightened up at the front, so that it moves slightly, so it's positioned on the blade, and the way it actually tightened up was different. So to take that out of the equation and have them balancing perfectly, I had to just keep cutting just little fine bits off the heavier blade until they balanced perfectly. So next what I'll do is I'll just pop them on the helicopter, run it up, track it, and run it for 4 or 5 minutes at a decent head speed in a low hover, just to make sure that these things stay in one piece. and then if that's fine, I'll put a fresh charge into these batteries and we'll see what it looks like at night.
They look brighter. They do.